Greetings again. We hope you are well. Today we will address a most important topic. It is essential that you listen carefully and remember what you learn. Even more essential is that from now on, you try to remember it at all times, as it is one of the fundamental pillars upon which your conception of reality rests. We are referring to language. Initially, it arose by chance, and over the millennia, it evolved and became inseparable from civilization itself. It happened more slowly at first, then more quickly, as the advantage it provided for survival and for prosperity was understood. But we will not focus here on anthropological aspects. You have already done that in countless studies. We propose that you begin by remembering how, in our previous message, we mentioned that due to habit, due to seeing a reality consistent with that experienced on previous days, you finally stop marveling at the torrent of colors, sounds, and sensations that constantly floods you. Your mind tries to avoid this to interact efficiently with its environment, paying attention only to the task at hand and ignoring the rest. In reality, it is in your power to recover that awareness of all these sensations, and not just those that are most pressing at a given moment, in favor of which you discard the others. But this requires training and practice. As we say, you are constantly surrounded by a torrent of experiences, and above all of them, like a net that envelops and intertwines with them, is language. Not only is it the tool with which you communicate what you think to others, but it also serves to a great extent to articulate your own internal discourse, which you continuously maintain with yourselves about any topic. Even if a train of thought begins unconsciously and you initially only visualize it, you soon begin to generate a linguistic discourse to be able to present it to yourselves in a comprehensible way and to explore it in greater depth, or simply to evaluate its most trivial consequences. If one of you vocalizes this internal discourse aloud, you label him as crazy, but you all maintain the same type of internal discourse in any case. The essential thing you must remember at all times regarding language is that the meaning of all its terms is arbitrary. Regardless of its historical origin and its constant evolution, each word is no more than a sound that all speakers of a certain language have agreed to associate with one or more specific meanings. Said meaning, by the way, varies slightly from person to person, according to their prior life experience related to that type of concept. It is not uncommon for two people to leave a conversation with different ideas about its content. Now think of a dictionary. Contained within it are the definitions of all the words that make up the language. But each of these definitions consists of a group of words, each of which is in turn defined in other entries of the dictionary, again by other words. The overall result is an arbitrary system of self-references, lacking intrinsic meaning. The same applies to all the grammar that explains how to use the words. Different languages that you have invented use different grammatical rules to relate words. We will discuss later how your minds generate concepts and capture them with words and ideas. In your world, and in the fundamental belief systems of many of you, the ability to name something gives power over that thing to the one who names it. By understanding that words are devoid of intrinsic meaning, this power of the namer over the named vanishes. For the moment, we encourage you to remember at all times how, every time you talk to someone, listen to someone, or reflect on something, you are making use of a system lacking intrinsic meaning. You are relying on an intellectual legacy of generations before yours, but you are not, in any way, dealing directly with the reality you are describing. You are using language to operate with representations of reality, not reality itself. The language you use makes sense to you as a representation of reality, precisely because it has been invented by your minds. And it has been invented by your minds because it is something that makes sense to them, because it is consistent with your way of perceiving the world through your senses and recording that information in a memory capable of temporally ordering events. The characteristics of your language reveal characteristics of your own minds and the image of the world they are able of forming to make sense of your surroundings, as well as inner workings. Your perception of the world seems like the ultimate reality of things simply because it is the only one your minds are capable of. Your minds would not be able to integrate the experience of other types of sentient beings, so you would not be able to understand their way of understanding reality. Our perception of reality is different from yours because our nature is also different. Our way of communicating with each other is inconceivable for you, so we have learned to use your own language to make these transmissions. We urge you to be aware that language is not reality, only a reflection of it that makes sense to a mind like yours. To an animal, it would make no sense. We know this is a challenge for you, detaching yourselves from language by making you more aware of its omnipresence, just as you forget most of the time that you are surrounded by air. We do not intend for you to turn your back on the use of language, but in moments of calm, stop to examine it. Hold an object in your hand, focus your attention on it, and repeat its name. Repeat it many times, 100 or more. You will soon realize that the object is not its name, and that the name lacks meaning. When you go back to using language normally, by the time you repeat a word for the second time, you have already forgotten most of the time when you first pronounced it, which does not provoke this realization that the previous exercise will cause you. The normal use of language, because of how internalized it has become after a few years of use, means that, as with the perception of objects, you do not think about language itself, but about the objects and ideas it describes. And the constant flow of different words means that there is no uncomfortable feeling of having repeated the same word many times. Otherwise, its lack of meaning would be manifest. Even so, you strive to use synonyms in case of repeating a concept many times. Why would you use different words to express the same idea, if not to avoid this discomfort? Be aware of language itself, and you will be freeing yourselves from one of your greatest mental chains. Use language as a tool when necessary, but do not confuse it with the reality it claims to represent. Aspire to a more direct experience of reality. Listen to this message as many times as necessary, as what we propose implies unlearning a lifetime of conditioning. Make sure you internalize these ideas and put them into practice often. Even during your own conversations with others, think as you speak about the way you are using language and the implications of the fact that you are converting your memories into sounds, which the other is listening to and converting into memories their own interpretation of yours. Words cannot be unheard, and minds generate memories unwillingly, so language is actually a bypass of any kind of protection that anyone puts up against you, as long as they can hear your words. This powerful and influential language is. And when you listen to this message again, and all the others of ours, also remember that you are listening to sounds, nothing more. It is not the ultimate reality, but it is the closest we can offer you by these means, leaving the rest of the work for you. We try to capture in these words a reality that we try to present to you. A reality where language has no intrinsic meaning. A reality where, ultimately, language does not exist and it has no place, only as a fancy accessory. And we try to do it using a language whose constituent elements, as we insist once again, have no meaning. It is paradoxical to try to express the deepest meaning using a tool lacking meaning. But paradoxes are more common than you are comfortable accepting. For a mind like yours, paradoxes are inevitable. We will explore others later. Take care, we will see you soon, whatever that means.